Hello and welcome to Frames Team, and today we'll discuss 30 plus lenses for the Nikon Z mount, and I'm going to rank them based on my user experience. This is not going to be strictly technical in analysis, but the analysis is going to be real world and I think far more relatable for for most normal use case scenarios, not technical tests. So if you are a photographer, you're a filmmaker, if you want to do stuff with your camera and your lenses, this is the kind of video that you'd like to actually spend time on and watch and understand. What I've done is I've created, I think, 6, 7 different segments where I think I want to sort of club each of these lenses. So let's get started with it. If you're new to the channel or if you find yourself coming back to the channel, help me reach 5,000 subscribers by the end of February, which is not too many days to go. So help me out, guys. It doesn't take anything away from you, but really helps the channel. So yeah, let's begin. Okay, let's start with this one. What is this? This is the 35 1.8s. Well, this is one of the first lenses from the Z mount when Nikon first launched the Z6 and Z7 that actually showcased the 35 and 50 1.8s. The S lenses at that point gave us a sense of where this new line of lenses and cameras are going to go. And I think the 35 1.8 is a really good lens. This is not a lens that I love, but I've seen so many photographers do crazy work with this lens. This is not too heavy. This is all right in terms of weight. This is very fast to focus, and the bokeh is slightly nervous and almost perfect, but there is a bit of chromatic aberration at times. But I think that matters less to me than the nervousness of the bokeh. The chromatic aberration, yeah, I'm just nitpicking, honestly. It's quite good. So 35 1.8s, I think it's a definitely a very good lens. It's definitely a pro lens. So I'm going to keep it at must have pro, very good lens, slightly towards good and special case. I'm not sure if it is a must-have, but it's definitely a pro lens and a good lens. Next, I think this is the 50. This is the 85 1.8s. Well, this is a very good lens. This is a very good lens, very smooth rendering, very perfect outcome. At times almost clinical, but it's excellent lens. If you compare this lens with the 85 1.8G from the DSLR times, you don't see any of that chromatic aberration, and it's a very sharp, beautiful, soft rendition of the background. If you're a pro in the using the Z mount, you should definitely have this lens. I would call it a top pro lens, somewhere between actually must have and top pro. Let's just keep it at, I think I'm going to keep it somewhere like this. Yeah, like it's good, very good, but top pro. What's this one? This is a 50 1.8s, another of the original, the first two lenses that Nikon ever launched for this mount. The 50 1.8 is my favorite. This is a beautiful lens. Like when the 1.2 lens 50 came out, a lot of people said, why do I need the 50 1.2? I have the 50 1.8 and that's that good. And a lot of people still to this date argue that Nikon doesn't need 1.4 line of lenses because lenses like the 50 1.8, the 85 1.8, the 20 millimeters 1.8. To me, this is so good that some people say, I'm okay with it. I don't need the 1.2, even after using the 1.2 and even after owning the 50 1.2. So I would say it is top pro and almost a god tier lens. This is, so you see how they stack up. The 50 is at the top, then comes the 85, and then comes the 35 1.8. They're all very good. And if you're a professional, these are the three lenses you should just go for, whether you buy them used or new. Fantastic lenses, and you're set for most shooting scenarios, whether wedding or events. Okay, what is this one? This is a 17 to 28 2.8, a Tamron inspired lens. Again, this is definitely if you look at the use cases, this is an internally zooming lens. This is quite well balanced. There's not too many imperfections with this lens. This is also quite affordable, and for the focal range that you get, 2.8 through and through, this is definitely a pro and must-have lens. And this is not a special case lens. You can also do vlogging with it. This is definitely something you should have in the wide angle side if you're in the Z mount. And if you don't have so much to spend, this is the lens for you. This is the 85 1.2. The 85 1.2, let's also bring the 50 1.2. I think these two lenses, like I said, the 51.2 is amazing, right? A lot of people initially thought that they don't need the 51.2 because you have the 1.8 and it's so good. But then once you start using it, you get used to it. The only problem with the 51.2 is that um, it's actually quite a long lens for a 50 millimeters lens. I mean, I'm talking about the length. I understand when a 1.2 lens, when a fast lens is a fat lens, but when it's a very long lens, it's a sort of it kind of feels odd. So at times I do feel the lens doesn't balance very well with the Z9 or Z8. Well, it does. It does balance better with the Z9 than it does with the Z8 or Z6 too. But I would still like this lens to be slightly shorter in length. But the quality of the lens, it's impeccable. It is a beautiful lens. This is definitely a god tier lens without a doubt. The 85 1.2S, man, you should have this lens. If you want one portrait lens, this is the lens you should have right now. Okay, I think this is actually even better than the 51.2 in its rendition, in the feel of the lens. Also, how it is made. The balance is so well. It's a shorter lens than the 51.2, mind you. It's probably a bit fatter, but it's definitely a shorter lens. The weight is almost similar between the 51.2 and the 85 1.2. I'm going to say this is a god tier lens, but slightly towards lens porn. There are definitely situations where you'll feel that this is that level. This is crazy. This lens shouldn't exist, but this does. Let's take this one. What is this? Oh, this is the 58.95. This is the Noct. I don't think we should discuss it. This is the lens that, if you can afford it, this is an $8,000 lens, and you can't go wrong with it. It's a heavy lens, more than 2 kilos. It's a large lens. It's a manual focus lens, but the manual focus ring is so accurate. It's crazy. Anyone can manual focus with this lens. It is so beautifully tuned. This is lens porn. I mean, if there are lenses that are obscene, this is expensive. This is beautiful to look at. This is beautifully made, and the rendition, the book you get. Just check out the reviews. I'm going to do a review on this very soon. And really, feeding 0.95 worth of light to a sensor is crazy. Let's look at something quite humble but really beautiful. The 40 millimeters 1.2. We get it in two varieties. The plain design, like this one here, the 28 2.8. You have two looks for both these lenses. The 40 millimeters f2 light plastic mount, a beautiful focal length, and fast enough. F2 is fast enough, almost 1.8. This is definitely a must-have lens. If you don't have it, it's also very affordable. If you don't have it, you should just go and get it. Don't discuss it, just get it. You should have this lens in your bag, especially today now that if you have a ZF or a ZFC, this lens, the 40f2, is the lens to go with. Should have it. The 28 2.8, another beautiful lens, really fast to focus. It is faster to focus than the 40f2, let me tell you, but it's not as fast a lens. It's a 2.8 lens, similarly priced, but similarly sized as well. Again, I think it's a must-have lens, a very good lens. Let's look at this one. This is, I think, the kit lens, the 24-70 f4s. Very versatile, not too expensive. One of the early lenses from the Z mount. Really good. It's weather sealed, very versatile, and the 24-70 focal length. I mean, it's so sharp, and the colors are so deep and beautiful. It's surprising that it's actually a kit lens. So I'm actually going to say that it is actually top pro lens. I think it does have pro level output. Yeah. Okay, let's look at this one. This is the 24 1.7 DX for the crop sensor cameras. I'm going to say this is a good lens, a special case lens. If you have a crop sensor camera and you want to prime for that, like if you have a ZFC, this is 35, 36 millimeters equivalent, quite fast, good to, fast to focus, quite light. Again, a plastic mount lens, not very expensive, but I have to say this lens focus breeds. I think what I remember from this about this lens is that this lens focus breeds. I'm going to do a review of this lens very soon, so look out for that. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't subscribed already. You're going to see reviews of many of these lenses. Let's see, what is this one? This is, I think, the 105 1.4 f mount. What a gorgeous lens. Now I have spoken with the 85 about the 85 1.2. The 85 1.2 is so sharp, absolutely sharp. The 105 1.4 is, it doesn't feel that sharp, but you have all the detail. But somehow it magically sort of manages the bad patches in someone's skin. It just, the skin looks better with the 105 1.4. I don't know how Nikon does it. The fact that it is sharp, but at the same time the skin is rendered so smooth. I don't know how Nikon does it. There's something very special going on with this lens. There is no other mount where you have this kind of sort of lens available. 105 1.4. You don't have a lens at 105 that's 1.4 in any other mount than Nikon F mount, and it is very well adapted to any of the Nikon Z mount lenses. Performs quite well. There's a bit of a focus motor noise, but it's not going to disturb you. It's definitely a top pro lens if you're a if you're a portrait photographer. Definitely a top pro lens. Let's see this one. This is, I think, the 85 1.8G. Again, an F mount lens. This is a good lens, special case lens in 2024. If you are like, if you still shoot DSLR, this is a lens to keep. It's better than the 1.4 85 f mount. And if you're getting the 85 1.8G for cheap, get it. If you don't want to spend the money, extra money on the 85 1.8 S lens for the Z mount, you can definitely go for the G lens, the F mount lens. This is not too bad. You'll see a bit of chromatic aberration here and there. But other than that, the lens is sharp and quite good to use. It's definitely not. It's not a must-have. It's not a top pro at all. I think it's a good special case, and you definitely get that slightly older world feel in 2024 from this lens. Now, a surprise in this list is the Tamron 35 1.4. This is a special edition lens from Tamron. This is being recorded on the Tamron 35 1.4. And it focuses quite well on the Z8. It focused quite well even on the Z6. So I have this lens now for 3 years and I love it. I love it. I just wish this lens was a bit smaller because it's quite heavy. And then with the adapter, it can get difficult, especially on hot summer days. I'm going to say it's a must-have pro lens. I'm not going to say it's a top pro lens, but it's definitely because of the autofocus at this state. But otherwise, optically speaking, this is better than the legendary Sigma Art. You can watch reviews on this lens, and this lens really stands out. Beautiful colors, beautiful sharpness. I love it. In fact, for some, depending on who you are, it can become top pro. But I think I'm going to keep it at pro, must have, very good. Yeah. What's this one? This is the crop sensor kit lens, 16 to 50, 3.5 to 6.3. Surprisingly accurate in focusing, surprisingly quiet in focusing, and surprisingly sharp. It's actually not a bad lens at all for studio photography, especially if you have a crop sensor camera. So I think it's a good special case lens when you want a very tiny compact lens that has VR inbuilt, very sharp. You don't want to bother much. It's an expendable lens. I have 2 of these. So it's a good special case lens. Now this, I think, is the 51.8G. Now the 51.8G is another nifty 50. Like if you are getting into the Z mount, you're buying the kit lens, you want to prime, but you don't want to spend money on the Z primes at this point. Get this used for like $100 or less. I mean, I think about $75 US dollars. this is a great lens to have. So I think it's a good special case lens when you don't want to spend money on the native Z mount lenses. This is a good lens. Let me tell you, this is a sharp lens. In many situations, if you watch Omar Gonzalez talk about the Z mount 50 1.8 and the F mount 50 1.8, the 1.8G, you will hear him say that I that he couldn't find difference. There are differences when you really shoot in difficult conditions against light. When you shoot fine details, you will see that the difference is visible. The 1.8S is much better. Now, let me tell you, there's a Sony lens among us right now. This is the Sony APS-C E-mount 11 millimeters 1.8 lens. Now, the reason I have this lens, I actually own this lens, is because I don't have anything like this in the Z mount. And if I want to sort of vlog with a wide angle lens and I want it to be a prime, not a wide aperture prime, and I want it to be light and good autofocusing lens, I go for this one. So till Nikon has something like this is a really good lens to have. I think, but this lens is sharp, but it has a lot of problems. It has a lot of bowing, distortion, right? So you will see all of that, especially since your Nikon camera will not correct for this lens. This on a Sony camera, your Sony camera will correct for the idiosyncrasies of this lens, but on the Nikon Z mount cameras, it will not. So you'll see all the distortions. But it's quite manageable. The distortion is going to be visible on the sides, not in the middle. It's a wide angle lens. I'm okay with it. I'm quite happy with this lens. I'm going to say it's a good lens and a special case lens adapted via one of the E to Z adapters, autofocus adapters for the Z mount. This is the Helios 58f2. Well, it's an old lens, but I love it. And again, it's I would say this is today, optically speaking, this is just okay and average, but it's also very cheap. So if you get access to this lens, have it. You're going to have some good time and fun. This is not a sharp lens or not a modern lens. Don't look for perfection. If you want a lot of uniqueness and character, if you want art straight out of the camera, and if you know how to use this lens, you should definitely have this lens in your. But otherwise, it's a just okay and average lens. Definitely a okay and average lens. I have the TT Artisan 50 f2, and let me tell you, it's surprisingly good. I spent less than $100 to buy this lens. I bought it for the Sony mount, and I'm using a dumb adapter to adapt it and use it on my ZF. It's a manual focus lens. Thanks to the ZF, it's quite easy to use. Very well built, feels very nice. The focusing ring is very accurate. I was surprised that this lens actually has some 3D pop and some dimensionality. You can see depth in the pictures when you use this lens. Only what, 85 US dollars. It is, I don't know, this is cheating. I would call it a pro lens. It's definitely a must-have lens for me. I'm never selling this lens. This is amazing. I'll probably get another one of these. I'm very curious to see what TT Artisan is doing after using this lens. I have a few TT Artisan lenses for the Fuji X mount, but I'm getting more and more curious after using this one. Here I have a Viltrox, the 33 1.4 for APS-C. You see XF here. I have this lens for Z mount. This lens has a bit of ghosting, but it's all right. I'm going to say that in some situations it's actually a better lens than the DX24 1.7, because you can stop down to f2 and get good results with the Viltrox. It's also a metal mount lens. It's a metal body lens. Very nice lens hood. So it just feels nicer in your hand. Probably a must-have lens if you have an APS-C camera, but I'm just going to say overall, it's a good lens. It's a good lens. It's special case lens, as in when you have an APS-C camera and you want something like this, the Viltrox 33 1.4 is something you should go for. Okay, here's a legend, the 135 f2.8 AI. I have used this lens for a long time on the D750. Back then, through the finder, it was more difficult to focus, but you get that 135 compression, which is beautiful. And if you stop down to f4, there is adequate sharpness. It's got a built-in lens hood, one of those designs from the old world. Very solidly built, actually, when you feel it, the cold, hard metal, the density of the lens, so nice. It's actually a legendary lens, and you should probably have it. I think it's a very good special case lens today. Okay, let's discuss the power zoom lens, Nikon's only power zoom lens. This is the 12 to 28 DX lens, f 3.5 to 5.6. This is, again, it's a plastic mount lens. This is a really good lens. This good focal range between full frame equivalent of 18 millimeters to 40 millimeters. I think it's not as fast as I would have liked it to be, but then it's very tiny and small. The autofocus is surprisingly good. I have never seen this lens misfocus in video. And this is a really, really, really good video lens. No matter whether you have a full frame camera or a crop sensor camera, you should have this power zoom. And the fact that you can do power zoom with this and you can do some crazy nice effects, you can do some really creative effects with this lens. So I think it's a must-have lens. For me, it's a must-have lens. Remember, it's also not too expensive. So remember that. Now we have, again, another Tamron inspired Nikon lens, 70 to 182.8. I'm going to say it's a must have because of how good the lens is, in combination with the pricing, the weight, the size, the usability, the autofocus. Everything is so well done, so well balanced. Nikon has done a great job of actually getting inspired by Tamron and getting a tie up with them and doing this, giving us a series of 70 to 28, 2.8, 28 to 72.8, and 70 to 182.8. When you're using this lens, you're not missing the 200 millimeters. But let me tell you, if you have the 70 to 200 with you, Nikon Z mount, and if you want to have the best quality count coming out of your camera, there's nothing that beats the 70 to 200 2.8S. I think this is one of the best 2.8 lenses right now across mounts. The best 2.8 lenses. Very sharp, very beautiful rendering, very quiet focusing, very good to focus with, very well built also. It's just that I think that the Sony lens is a bit lighter. I would have liked this lens to be a 300 grams lighter, but I'm fine with what it gives me. I think this is a top pro lens. This is definitely a top pro lens. If you're a pro, you must have the 70 to 180. But if you want a pro and you want to have top level lenses, the 70 to 200 is that. It has a lot less imperfection. The 100 to 400, very good too. This is a very versatile lens. Okay, you can shoot birding, you can shoot wildlife, you can do travel, you can do landscape, you can do so much with this lens. And f4.5 to 5.6 is not very slow. It's the same size and almost the same weight as the 70 to 200. It's a very, very interesting lens to have in your bag. I don't have it, but I've used it quite a few times and I loved it every time I used it. Now comes the quite recent 180 to 600 f5.6 to 6.3. Very affordable lens. I think $1,700 US. It's surprising that this lens is so affordable. The minimum focus distance is very good. The reproduction ratio is quite high. So you get, if a bird is in front of you, you can take large shots of it. I think it's a top pro lens. It's somewhere between must have and top pro. So yeah, makes a lot of sense to have the lens straddle both the quadrants here. Okay, this is the 600 f4 ED. This is the f mount lens. Now I wanted the 600. Imagine this lens to be the 600 6.3 for Z mount. Okay, that's what I wanted to talk about. I have taken the wrong picture. Now the 600 6.3 is actually a God tier lens. That lens is so sharp. So sharp, it's a bit surprising. The 600 6.3. Look out for the lens if you want a compact TF lens, just about a kilo in weight, very fast to focus, extremely sharp. The 600 PF 6.3 for Z mount is the one you should go for. Now, what do we have here? This is the 400 2.8. Okay, I don't think it needs discussion. Watch my review of it. Very fast, amazing autofocus. What beautiful rendering. It's got a TC inbuilt, right? Remember that. It's got a teleconverter inbuilt, 1.4 teleconverter inbuilt. So 402.8, and with the teleconverter, it can go up to 560 f4. Heavy lens, but what an exotic, beautiful lens. Then comes the 800 6.3 S. I've used this lens and I think this is my best lens for birding. If you do not want to disturb the birds, the lens you should carry is the 600 6.3. No other mount has this lens. This is a Gautier lens. This is a Gautier lens. Let's not forget the Nikon F mount 200 to 500. A lot of people still will use this lens. I still have requests coming in on my channel to do a review of this lens with the Z8 and the Z9. I mean, it performs well. It definitely performs better than how it performed on the F mount cameras, but I think it's a bit difficult to manage. The fact that it's externally zooming and it's not as fast to focus on the Z mount cameras, it makes a lot of noise. I have to consider adding the weight of an adapter. This is a good lens, but very fast getting irrelevant in 2024, especially because you now have the 180 to 600 at such a good price. If you have this lens, I would say sell off, take that money, and then get the 180 to 600 Z mount. I'm going to keep it at good special case lens. That's what I'm going to keep this one. Now here are a few lenses I haven't used, but I have a decent amount of idea about these lenses. So that's bonus, and you can disagree with my assessment of these lenses. But let's go over them one by one. We know enough about these lenses. I know enough about these lenses to sort of slot them. I think the 105 2.8 micro, the macro lens is actually a top pro lens. So it goes there. I think the Plena is one of a kind lens, and eventually I'm going to have this lens. It's a one of a kind lens, 135 1.8. It's very fast, absolutely optically majestic, perfect. There's not a single lens out there that's like this. I'm going to say it's like the 85. It's somewhere between Gautier and lens Pond. It's somewhere there. Okay, that's my assessment. Tell me if you disagree. There is a 24 to 70 2.8. Is an absolute top pro lens. Beautiful rendition, beautiful. I mean, you should just look at the pictures that come out of this lens. Okay, I think it's a bit too heavy for my liking, and I'm happy with the f4. But if you want better output and faster normal zoom, 24 to 70 f2.8, this is the lens to go for across all mounts, and definitely a top pro lens. Then you have the 24 to 120 f4, absolutely sharp, gorgeous, versatile lens. Again, I'm going to say it's a must-have lens. Okay, I'm going to say it's a must-have lens because one should have this lens in the bag, because it just opens up so much possibilities with just one lens in a bag. That's the simple reason why that's a must-have lens, and it's definitely a pro lens as well. Most pros for studio shooting and even for wedding will use the 24 to 120 f4. Last but not the least, we have the 28 to 75 2.8. Really nice focal range, and for the price and the weight, I think this is also a must-have lens. I'm not sure if it's a special good and just a special case lens. I think it's better than that. It's more than that. So I'm going to keep it at must-have. So let me now do a summary of what we have done. We have how many lenses at top row? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 8 top row lenses. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Gautier lenses, and we have 2.5 lenses, almost 3 lenses, which are like lens born. And I'm not talking about 600 f4. I'm sure that goes in the category of lens born, one of the most expensive lenses out there. So yeah, for must have, which is what most people will actually work with, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We have 11 lenses that are pro lenses that you must have, which are going to sort of take care of most of the focal range, whether it is wide angle zoom to telephoto 70 to 200 equivalent, or if it's a birding lens 180 to 600. If you see how beautifully it just fits in, you have affordable, well-rounded must-have lenses available for you on the Nikon Z mount, starting from 17 millimeters right up to 600 millimeters, which is amazing. Which is, I mean, something to think about. Then there are good special case lenses. You have some of the old lenses, some of the third-party lenses, and the DX24 1.7. I think this could have been slightly better, but maybe it could have been more expensive. Just okay and average, I would say that the Helios 58 f2 is okay. It's really a special case, very niche sort of a use case lens. So there you have it. I'm going to leave you here with a lot to think about. So lots of lenses. Let me know if you want to see reviews of any of these lenses in particular. I have quite a few review of these lenses. I have the 800, the 400 2.8, the knocked. I'll do one more knocked. I have the 180 to 600 reviewed. So quite a few lenses I've reviewed. I'm going to soon review the 180 to 600 as well. And I have the stuff ready. I just have to release the that video. The Tamron 35 to 1.35 1.4 is an amazing lens that I should definitely review before the 35 1.2 from Nikon Z mount comes out. If you're new to the channel, do subscribe. It's been a long conversation. It's been a long video. I think you can see the sun setting in the background. So let me know what you think. Let me know what your opinions are on these lenses. Do you own these lenses? Have you used these lenses? How many of these lenses have you used? Let me know in the comments below, and subscribe. Support the channel. Help me reach 5,000 subscribers by the end of February. And I'm going to see you soon with another video very soon. See you. Baby, done.